Yeah, there we go. Good. I think everything looks fine. Welcome to another stream of Lyrebird Edits. And good morning, Sayaka, who's asleep, waiting for me to come. I think now's a good time to start. No, no, Minion Mug. Jeez, I've already lost a point. Hopefully we can get back up to 10 out of 10. I even set aside the Minion Mug. It's in my kitchen. I guess I'll have to go back and get it when I want tea halfway through this stream. Got a coffee, which will last for a little while. I guess I could have had the coffee in the Minion Mug, but that sort of seems like sacrilege at this point. Morning, Ernst Herringbone. Herringbone. How are you? Hope you've been well. 1 out of 10 stream. I like the way you think. Let's make it. There you go. That's some good math from TTLACC. So I need to start off without the Minion Mug, and then go and reintroduce the Minion Mug. And it's perfect, perfect score. Good to see you again. TTLACC. Green Maths. That's the one. That's the one. Gonna move the mic a bit closer. Move my me a bit closer. Alright, very good, very good. How have you all been? Anything exciting been happening? Anything not so exciting? Let me know, fill me in, tell me what you're up to. Because I'm still waking up. I am still waking up. I'll get there eventually. Man, that is an old meme. That's I remember this one from years and years ago. What happened to that guy? I wonder. Rehearsals for a play. Oh, that sounds fun. Ah, I remember plays from school. But is this a is it a community play, or is it one that you've contributed to, or where is this play happening? Hey, Bungan Addict. Very nice. That's really good news. Getting that transition between those segments can often be really tricky. Once you nail it, it's so smooth after that, I find. I've had a few, not problems, but just sort of questions over how you transition between different acts. And when you nail it, and it feels really good. And your story hasn't gone anywhere. You need to fix that. You need to get on your bike and cycle down the main street of progress? I don't know where I was going with that metaphor. Yes, chop chop. Chop 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 chop. No, whenever is the creative whims come your way, that's the best time to work. I mean, people say that you can force yourself into writing habits, and to a degree, I agree. Sometimes I think you just have to let stuff sit for a while before you build up the enthusiasm to go back and take it again. Oh, I love the Crucible. That's a really good play. Nice, nice. Well, enjoy, and hope it goes well. That sounds really exciting. Very good, Si. I can never give up hope. Just give up momentarily, and then you can find hope again later. Domination. It's a demotivation drive. Well, that's what Google Maps is for. I don't know what Google Maps could be substituted for in this metaphor. Just whip out Google Maps, your writing will get better. That's basically what I'm saying. Hmm. Appearance of hating myself. Oh yeah. I guess it's also comforting to know that you don't have to completely get it done in one chunk too, I suppose. You allow yourself that flexibility to, I suppose, come to an understanding of what works best between the acts. And that will involve hating yourself and polishing it up, but yeah, eventually we all get there, and it will be good. Alrighty. Well, that's Lyrebird drinks a coffee, so I guess we're done for today. Okay, thanks. See you next time. Bye bye. Um, that'd be a weird stream. You just I stream myself for 10 minutes where I have a coffee and I chat with people. Hmm. Quality content. Very good. Alrighty. So, I saw over on Discord that, Naz has been up for some obscene amount of time, so she's going to go to sleep, which is more than justifiable. So we're going to be editing the story today without Naz here. Ooh, that's nice. Look at that. That's a change. That crisp text. Nice. Hey, hey Rufus, you're back. Very good. Hi. Destroying us dreams. Do you mean my dreams? Or your dreams? Or the dreams that we share? Destroying us dreams. Shouldn't you be playing Fortnite or something? But yes, welcome back, Rufus. Good to see you. Yeah, that stream I think is on my YouTube channel, where Rufus is right now. I think if you go down to follow the YouTube banner on my homepage, and you'll be able to find like all the archives of my streams. My pleasure, Rufus. My pleasure, Rufus. This is the most YouTube chat I've had ever, actually. I now have lost my place. Let me go back and look. Yeah, so I think you'll be able to see Ernst Herringbone's not Ernst Herringbone's Pumpkin Pie Addict's story. I think it's in the archives if you want to go check it out. Someone else's story then. I've got a story. Which what was the story about? Ernst Herringbone? I've got a terrible memory. I don't remember my stream order sometimes. We'll go back into the. It was Sean's story we were editing last. Um, we were also doing like going through an example from another author. Um, well, that was Cuddly Clem's story, Trip. What's 76? Ah, E3 games. Um, Let me comment at that in a tick. That's right, yeah, it was Trip. Ah, Fallout 76, right. That I guess shows how out of sync I am with the gaming sphere. That's right, that's right. Grim Chronicles Dead Man Switch. Yes, and that is in the YouTube archives if you want to go check it out. I don't think I rip it apart too much. No. It's kindly ripping apart, right? Like lovingly tearing apart. um the E3 games. I've been really curious about Death Stranding for a long time. I have no idea what it's going to be about. I haven't got a PS4, so I can't play it. So that's kind of my E3 experience in a nutshell. It's like, oh, this looks cool, but I haven't got like the console to play it. So yeah. What else is coming out? Smash Brothers, interesting but can't play it. Death Stranding, interesting, can't play it. There are like three or four samurai games coming out. I kind of get lost. There are a few coming out. Can't play those. Uh, Sable looks really cool. Can't play that. Fallout 76 I can play, but I really want to this time make sure I'm going to enjoy Fallout before I buy it, and that's probably going to involve more digging than just watching a GameSpot review because I didn't like Fallout 4 very much, which was a shame. Um, so I'll have to make sure that it's actually what I want out of a Fallout game, more or less, before I buy another one. I think that's justifiable. That's justifiable. Oh, that's right, Last of Us 2. Can't play that. Um, and I'd love to play the first one, but I haven't got a PS3. Crowdfund a PS4. Oh, that's very nice of you to offer. Um, I'd rather the money went to. Nah, keep the money to yourself. I'd rather you keep the money. Yes. I'm just going back to the comments here. I like how um, Real Psychers comment about me gently caressing the soft skin of the story or review, either way, and whispering, you need to change these things. I'm kind of like Helen from HR, like a really sort of fake nice, smiley kind of person. It's like, we don't tolerate that kind of behavior in this company. We're gonna have to ask you to leave, okay? We don't think you're the right fit, okay? We're just gonna we need you to reconsider your employment here. And I'm Helen from HR. Oh yeah, true. Pumpkin Pie Addict says Death Stranding is not going to come out until 2020. Yeah, it's probably going to take another year and a half, isn't it? That's right. Ghosts of Tsushima. That's right. Really, just have a think about your life choices. Very good. Very good. Wake me up in the air begins. Sorry, guys. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. Um, Let me try and find where we left off from last time. Now, last time we got them transitioned into a sort of ghostly town. They met the doctor there. They go inside. Um, is there a hotel here? Yes, just down the street. The inn, I think we'll stay there. I think that is a bit beyond here. Yeah, is there a hotel we can stay for the night? Alright, thanks. Now, my memory is that I didn't fully go through this section here. Um, the last thing I remember talking about was working on the transition between the exterior and the interior of the township. It is a sign as we approach in the public. So that was kind of here. You'll notice that all the suggestions and stuff are absent from this version, and I think it's because Nazgula has been working through this story up until this point here. So my edits are gone, but it's actually just in the history. And I think Nazgula's just been working through them. So that's why it looks very bare. It's the same document, it's just like everything's been worked through. I think it was right there, wasn't it? Yeah. Here. Let's go from here because I think even if I repeat myself a little bit, we can still work on this section. Suggestions mode on. Let's get started. Thank you for being patient, guys. I'm sorry for getting distracted. It's your fault. It's your fault for talking about such interesting things. Everyone's fault, but mine. It's not my fault. I'm blameless. As we walked into town on broken pavement, we noted the absence of any other people. Nobody was outside, nor were they peering out of their darkened windows at the odd couple walking down the street. The rustic houses all sat at distant, awkward angles, surrounded by animal fences and gardens. They looked like the kind of places I'd seen when I was young, visiting with my grandmother on her farm. Still, there wasn't anything resembling an office building in sight, much less a clinic. I'm not sure if we'll find any help, I said, craning my neck to glance around. I was fighting back tears as the pain in my leg worsened. Maybe we should head back. Hey, a voice called out. It came from the house to the right of us. A man leaned out of the second level window. Are you guys okay? Oh, so this isn't a ghost town, I thought. Is there a hospital around here? Hugh yelled back. Stay right there, the man shouted, disappearing back into the house. Please, Lord, don't let this guy murder us, I said under my breath. Hugh chuckled. A moment later, the man reappeared at the front door, holding it open and waving us in. Hugh was hesitant. Let's just go in. I really need help, I begged. Hugh resigned and walked up to the door. So we've already read this out before once. I'll do a little brief prune. We noted the absence of any other people. That's a tell, and it's followed up by this, which it tells the detail maybe a little too much more than what I'd like, but how would we fix it? I think I remember last time saying the same sort of half of the same thing. It declares what it's trying to show you, and then it shows you these details. I think on the whole it's fine. Potentially you can make it a bit stronger in terms of say nobody was outside is the same thing as saying absence of people. So this is a little bit redundant in terms of we noted the absence of any other people, nobody was outside, nor were they peering. I think I'm going to let that slip for now, though. I don't want to spend too much time nitpicking. I think that's an interesting point, Pumpkin Pie Addict. About office. That caught me too. That wasn't there last time, actually. I think her expectation of... Do you guys remember this from last time? I don't know if that was there or not when we read it out in the last edit. Somebody with better short-term memory than me might have a good recollection of this. I don't recall this being here. Her expectation of what to find inside a town in the middle of nowhere should be adjusted to rural. So for example, I don't think it's logical for her to expect an office building. Is she really expecting... Correct me if I'm wrong, does this expression usually happen in reverse? Still, there wasn't anything resembling a clinic in sight, much less civilization. Like, is it smaller than bigger, or is it bigger than smaller? How does this expression usually work? I've used it before a couple of times, but I've never had to really think too hard about it. There's nothing resembling a clinic, let alone proper civilization. It's sort of how I think about using it. Do I spell reappear with a hyphen? Let me check. I would. Not. No, you can get rid of the hyphen there. Reappeared is Thank you, Google. No, reappear is a word. Yep. It's one of those spelling things that you can't quite make complete sense of. Some words you do have to hyphenate, others you don't. This is one that you don't. If you do, yeah, I think you have to get rid of that hyphen. Good catch. Oh, really? It's an official instead of office. Oh, cool. Where is they reminded me of? Ah, that's what you're suggesting you replace it with. Yeah, that's an interesting sort of suggestion there. I think that's quite a sensible one, Sayaka. It's a subtle change. Here it is. Reminded me of the kind of places I'd seen when I was young. Go. Visiting with my grandmother on her farm. Visiting with my grandmother on her farm. Visiting my grandmother on her farm. Yeah, that's quite a neat suggestion. I think I agree with it too. Hmm. Hey, it was a good suggestion. Well done, Sayaka. Much less implies the second thing is even more ridiculous to expect than the first. That's my impression of it. Right, so in that case it needs to be flipped around, doesn't it? Still, there wasn't anything resembling a clinic, let alone, or slash much less. It's called covilization. So how does that look? Still, there wasn't anything resembling a clinic, let alone slash much less any other staple of civilization. That looks a bit more what we'd expect. Excuse me. Alrighty. Oh, good, now I can sit up straight. Um, I'm using my wired headphones today because these don't run out of battery. And the cable to my desktop tower is like that long. It's this long. So I was kind of hunched over with my my head over here. But now I can sit up straight, which is good. Good. Yeah, I think that's right. Uh, I think let's make a comment about this. It's a bit of a um. Just keep in mind that there are multiple ways that pain will influence your story. Because it's told from the first person, if it was present, first person present, which is a difficult register to write in, but you need to imbue a sense of pain into the narrative. Because this is first person past tense, you can afford... Oh, one sec. One sec. Two secs. One sec. 3 secs. I can't hear myself anymore. Okay, one sec. Hello? Hello? There we go. Oh. Everything is fine. Everything is good. What I was saying here is because this is first person past tense, you can afford yourself some distance between the immediate emotional weight of the events and the narrator. However, it becomes difficult to justify having so much pain and having it not influence how your character sees the events. So there's this fine line you have to tread. This is a really good symptom of what's kind of gone on before, in that I remember last time we chatted about the transition between the outside world and the inside world can be marred by this sense of pain dilating the time, as Ellie and Hugh, not Hugo, it's Hugh, I remember, it's Hugh, Ellie and Hugh. Hugh is carrying Ellie. Ellie's sense of time is being dilated and stretched because of her sense of disorientation and pain. I'm not sure if that was actually included in the transition. It looks like it hasn't been. In which case, I really want to reiterate this point that she's in a lot of pain, and even though this story is told in the future past, there's still I as a reader would still want to see a lot more. My leg feels like it's gonna fall off. This is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. That kind of thing. So that being said, Ellie is still in a lot of pain, and this must at some level influence how she sees the events. Right now, her voice is a bit blasé about the pain. All it would take to fix this, what it would take to fix this on a base level, is a few mentions of her pain, how it's affecting her mood, and how it's affecting her desire to get help. Because right now it's just, I was fighting back pain as, I was fighting back tears as the pain in my leg worsened, which is fine, that's kind of like entry level, but it's still like, it reads as though she's just been bitten by a mosquito, and it's like you slap your arm and you're like, oh, okay. Even though that this is quite a strong image, it's kind of contradicted by, maybe we should head back. I'm not sure if it would help. Like, these are quite vanilla statements. So in addition to this, your dialogue must match the emotional intensity. So I'm not sure if we'll find any help. Maybe we should go back. Contrast that against, need to get help now. Um, yeah, so contrast like these two pieces of dialogue here. I'm not sure if we'll find any help. Maybe we should head back versus we need to get help now. My leg is falling apart. I don't care what we do. We need to get inside. They're very different levels, right? So match the dialogue with the emotional intensity. This is a very important point here because readers will forgive a lot of the edits that I'm talking about here are very structural things. Are very uh, really all I'm doing with these kinds of suggestions here is helping to improve the flow. But when we get to something like this, it's quite important that you don't skimp over the emotional detail because your readers will tune out of a story that they think is unbelievable. And one of the, I suppose, things you really have to watch out for is this, that um, you don't give your reader a reason to be like, if I was in that situation, I would do X, Y, Z. As soon as you make your reader think that, you're not having them engage with the story. They're supplanting your story with their own, and that's not what you. Don't do that. Magic door, TTLACC. Yeah, I've got a ghost. It's it's pretty friendly, but it just opens doors and yeah, not quite as friendly as Casper the Friendly Ghost, but a ghost never the same. Hey, Adi Safari, hello. Wow, he caught me at an interesting time there where I had to cut out the stream. But hello, good to see you again. Let me go back and see if I've missed any chats. That's right. Right, so TTLACC says, like, all that adrenaline must be affecting her voice. Yeah, like, surely it must be, right? Typical Australian ghost. Australian ghosts are like the ghosts of like the brown snakes that we kill. They open the doors. You seen like that video of the snake opening the door? I love that video. It's not an Australian video, but it's very funny. Anyway, yeah, I'm good. I'm good, Adi Safari. How are you? How are you? How are things? Hope everything is good with you. Um, let's push on. Um, with as Psychos was pointing out here, we don't need I thought if this is internal dialogue because it's italics. Now here we've got lots of back-ended dialogue. I know I was making a big thing about it last stream in terms of it being like a funny thing that I was doing, but in all seriousness, there's a lot of back-ended dialogue here, and the more you do it, it yeah, look like here. Um, it could benefit from being shuffled around. So really watch out for the back ending of the dialogue tags here. Let's go. But in terms of this, I think if I just highlight it and say don't do this, then you'll know what I mean. Um, so for example, Hugh took to the center of a street and called out at the top of his lungs, "Is there a hospital around here?" Um, Oh, actually, sorry. He's talking to the guy. Stay right. The man shouted from the top of his building. Stay right there, please. Or don't this guy murder us. I said under my breath. Is okay, but it's getting very long. So this reconfigures how you see the dialogue. Yeah, just make sure that you are aware of what we were talking about last stream, which was about dialogue tagging. Um, oh, that's cool. Wow, very good. Congratulations. That's really nice. It's good to do, I guess, try something new and to stretch your creative muscles in new directions. So yeah, my kudos to you. That sounds really exciting. Do you have any experience with programming, or are you doing other things for the games like assets or yeah, actually tell me about it. What is your game? That sounds cool. That's good. Yep. Really good suggestion from Moans Bone is to introduce a bit of friction between the characters. I'm gonna put that at the end of this comment here. Um, Yep, that's a really good suggestion too. It has to, the pain has to influence all aspects of her interactions, I think. Yeah. I'm okay with back-ended dialogue. It just needs to be done short, sharp, sweet, and regularly. Good question. That's a really good question. Hugh was hesitant. So, because this is focalized through Ellie and told by Ellie in a present to past tense, she as a narrator is allowed to, I guess, force her perspective onto characters. So Hugh was hesitant is a really good example of that. It's not the best writing, so to speak, because it's a very declarative statement without justification. It tells you the detail, but it doesn't demonstrate how he's hesitant. Um, can you comment? Can you think of a way to show this detail instead of telling us? Body language is a really good way to do this. So if it's first person, how does Hugh being hesitant work when describing another character? I think we just as readers understand intuitively that Ellie is projecting her perspective onto other characters, um, which works a bit better if she describes what they do rather than tells the reader outright what they do. Um, it's a bit of a fine-tuned thing, I think. It works, but you need to be sort of consistent about it throughout the whole narrative. Oh, cool. That's pretty cool. I like that idea. It's a perfect game jam idea because it's simple and sweet, and if it has a killer mechanic, it could be really cool. Nice one, yeah. A good way to learn how to do things too. When you're finished, pop a link to it in Discord so we can all play it. That'd be fun. He sat me down on a sofa in the middle of the unlit living room. The man hurried around the house, flipping switches in every room. We've got living room in every room. So I noticed this the first time. I was going to make a suggestion. Um, Something like that. Like, it doesn't have to be urine color. You can even get rid of that. Ooh, sickly light bulb sunshine. That's the name of my new band. Don't steal it. I haven't copyrighted it yet. Um, you actually have to trademark a band name. Yeah, don't trademark this. I want it. Sickly light bulb sunshine. Whoa, I love your music. Yeah, thank you, guy out there. Yes, we're gonna play music like musicians. I was able to why did I suggest this? I got rid of in every room because that's a bit weird to go into every room and switch light on. All you need to do is just switch enough lights on so that like an aura appears. I was able to see him at last as he drifted back in to greet us. He was my age, mid to late 20s, if I had to guess. I looked to have just woken up, dressed in only a pair of trousers, his short brown hair a ruffled mess. Was a ruffled mess. Okay, so this is fine with the semicolon if you've got was there, because they're two separate sentences. Um, it's a fairly decent description of someone, and then you move on. The house didn't appear as though it belonged to a guy his age, which is a good observation. The place had to be turn of a century at least. The yellowing wallpaper and cherry wood furniture reminded me of something that might be found in an old saloon. I really want to use this later in my own writing. I know it's very wordy. Unattempt. I want to delete it. Yeah, I will. Before I'm gonna copy it and paste it somewhere. Coded in a. There. Yes. No one saw that. Yeah. you can use it if you want. I don't really care. And it might actually be better to have it shorter. Anyway, the house didn't appear. The big guy's age, yellow wallpaper and cherry wood furniture, something that might be found in an old saloon, only cleaner, pristinely preserved. Pristinely preserved is nice. Look, it's an ly adjective, but I'm fine with it because of alliteration. He sat down on a footstool in front of me and inquired as to what the trouble seemed to be. I broke my leg. So keep in mind. These two are casual as if they're... These two sentences seem quite ornate and casual, as if they're discussing which shade of lemon whispers to paint the walls with. Instead, maybe consider something a little stronger. So, what seems to be the problem? Something like that. Yeah, but don't write that. Just capture that spirit. Is what I'm suggesting. It's a bit too sort of yeah, casual, I suppose. Let's go back and read the comments. You're in color. Yeah. Be careful with urine color really. I'm sorry to say this. It colors the scene when you use a word like urine or shit to describe a color or an aura of something. It really brings with it a lot of connotation. TTLACC drops some wisdom on us and says, my urine is clear when I drink a lot of water. Pro tip. Very good. It means your kidneys are working just fine. So if anyone here needs a spare kidney and you're dying, TTLACC has got the good kidneys. He'll hook you up. Adi Safari, that's fantastic. I'm just reading through the mechanic of your game. That's great. I want to play this. If I had to guess, where was if I had to guess? Here you go. He was in my mid to late 20s, if I had to guess. Yep, so you can start it off with, if I had to guess, I'd say, yeah, he was in my mid to late 20s. I agree, I think that's a better way to start the sentence, because we avoid the use of the pronoun as well. If I had to guess, he was about my age. There's quite a few parts to this sentence, and then a semicolon as well. It's not the best sentence, but it gets the job done, I think. Also, good call with the if I had to guess, because we've got a he, the man, I, he, the house, the place, the yellowing wallpaper is quite nice. He sat down. So again, just in this paragraph, and indeed all paragraphs, watch out for the pronoun use. So good suggestion, Pumpkin Addict. Right. He was about my age, mid to late 20s, and looked to have just woken up. I think it's both of them, the way that it's constructed now. He sat me down. Yeah, actually, that's a good suggestion. He sat down on a footstool in front of me. He sat me down. Uh, is she already on a sofa? He sat me down on a sofa. I just don't like this. I would have her sit down herself. Um, or he instructed Hugh just to sit me down on a sofa. I think it's a bit of a throw away. I'll let Nazguula, because she'll be coming through this stream at a later date. If you like that idea about not having him sit her down, but have herself sit herself down, I'm 50-50 about it, like editing wise. Reader wise, I don't really have a strong opinion either way. A sickly yellow glow. Yep, also works really good for a warm fuzz. Oh yes, right. Sorry, no, she hasn't broken a leg. Good point. It's I think sprained her ankle. Um, did I say leg? Did I? Oh, I broke my leg. Right, right, right. I don't think she did she? I think she just sprained her ankle. Yeah, I think she is exaggerating. Right, exactly. Um, this is a good point, which I will copy, paste. Um, actually, I think I'll just say that one out loud too. I think I broke my leg. It probably gets rid of this problem here, and it's a big problem too. If you broke her leg, she would be not at all happy with anything. She would be screaming at the top of her lungs after the adrenaline wears off. Ah, well, you're in luck. I'm a time doctor, he said, giving me a wink. Put your foot up for me. I heaved it up carefully, taking a deep breath to keep from shrieking. What's the doctor doing living out here? Hugh asked, standing in the corner with his arms crossed. It's okay. Well, I grew up here, had to come back. He stood and headed to the kitchen. When he returned, he had an ice pack for my knee. Came bearing an ice pack. He had an ice pack for me. Let's give that a while to aid the swelling, he said. So what's your name? I asked. I'm Ryan Willoughby. I'm Eloise. That's Hugh. I say waving my hand at my husband. While we waited. Ellie, I don't know if I trust this guy, Hugh said, coming down to sit next to me. I'd I'd rather Here's yet another reason why back-ending the dialogue doesn't work sometimes. It's sometimes back-ending the dialogue can be used as a substitute for motion. So, for instance, there's a lot of motion that happens here. This is the one sentence where stuff really happens. Two characters come together, and then, sorry, the next sentence is also a character moves out of the room. Ellie, I don't know if I trust this guy, Hugh said, coming to sit down next to me. So, what this has the back-ending dialogue tads plus adding a motion sequence is a decent technique to speed up the pace of the story because it glides through, right? We've got a lot happening in this sentence. Three things happen. Dialogue, said, coming to sit down next to me. So if you ever want to really push the pace of your story forward, I probably recommend doing this. But right now, I don't think we need to speed up. If anything, I want to slow down and savor the weirdness of this situation. Solution? Take that motion sequence out, plonk it down before the dialogue, and flesh it out into its own sentence. A la, like this. this feels more fleshed out. This is slower, more grounded. It helps the reader to figure out or to suss out the emotional temperature of the room. Yeah, you've got me thinking, Artie Safari, about emotional temperatures. What kind of doctor treats people in his house? And then that can be followed up afterwards. For real estate. Thank you. Thank you. I was hoping someone would notice. Like and subscribe. My dank meme compilations. Oh, someone's left. Oh, and Stringbone. See you later. You're probably already gone. Oh well. See you later. Bye-bye. Punkabiotic makes a good point about, like, these dialogue tags just don't need to be here because it's only 2 characters. Good point. Yeah, it does feel a bit on the nose, doesn't it? In terms of how quick it is without. Wonder where we could introduce a bit of small talk. There needs to be a bit more of a reason for Hugh to be stony-faced about this doctor. Good opportunity for the doctor to be a bit of a creep as well. If you guys think of any suggestions, please let me know. In terms of what the small talk could be, I'm kind of coming up empty with that suggestion. But it's a good one, and I need to think of how it can fit in. That's true, yeah, if, that's not a bad idea. Hmm. I think this is when they were outside, right? With Hugh and Ellie. He taught you how to doctor? Good. Not bad. Good. Um, so what kind of doctor treats people in his house? The nice kind? I said, rolling my eyes at him. I wasn't sure if I could trust him either. This, it's pretty petty. But it fits the characters. The only thing I'd suggest against it is that if she's in a lot of pain, oh, so rolling my eyes at him would be really good if they were discussing, like, something that they were seeing as they were driving down the highway looking at billboards. But she's in pain in a weird person's house. Right, so I think maybe just replace it with something that's a bit more attuned to her emotional state. I think that's the theme for the first part of this edit tonight. I wasn't sure if we could trust him either, truth be told, but what choice did I have? It wasn't like we could hope to bump into a less impeachable physician. Besides, it was pitch black out there, and I didn't know if we could find the car now. Again, just make sure that you have previously indicated the lapse in time. One moment it's the middle of the day, next it's night. And I haven't read over the improvements you made on this last part here, or the edits that you took into consideration. So it's just like a gentle reminder that we still need confirmation. And I didn't know if we could find the car now. Definitely not. I'm just saying he's weird. You whispered, looking over his shoulder, fiddling with the wooden coaster on the coffee table. There's a coffee table? There's a footstool. This wasn't here before. If it's important for your characters to interact with it, introduce it earlier. Ellie, we should at least find somewhere else to stay for the night. I won't stay here. I won't stay here. Yeah, I guess. So grabbing the coast of his hands as random enter the kitchen. I'm gonna go change. He said when I come back down, we'll take a look at that lake again. He needs to exit the scene before. That's an interesting character development. I move it to the top just makes it quirky. That's not a bad idea actually. To have this come earlier in the scene. Just a suggestion there, maybe have it pushed up. That's a pretty good one. Hello Sekoj. Hello. Lurking from the tablet. Enjoy your lurking. I miss your distractions, but I'll get by. I'll get by somehow. I agree with the comment here before about don't necessarily need when you can get rid of them. You don't have to. You can put dialogue tags for two characters. It's just yeah, like here for instance, like this is fine, great, which is fine and great. But even earlier on, you still don't need it. Hey Ryan, question. You said leaning against the wall. I think that's okay. Colon question? Is there a hotel we could stay at for the night? Oh sure, there's an inn right down the road. If you go down the street and take a left, it's right there, he said, smiling. Can't miss it. You reciprocated with a wry smirk. Thanks. When you're done here, I think we'll head down there, he said, sliding into an armchair by the window. Yep, I think so. I don't want to watch the same point over and over again. I think Nazguula is on the wavelength there. But yeah, I agree. Like a lot of yeah. Okay, so here is sort of where we got up to last stream. Let's read a chunk of it first and then go back and do another wash. It would suffice to say that I let slip a few unsavory words while Ryan repositioned the bone and put a brace on it without painkiller, I might add, but I was thankful to be done with it. He advised staying off of it for a month at least. I don't know if I can see that happening, I said, trailing off with a laugh. Ryan shot me a knowing look. Well, if you want it to heal, it needs to be rested, he said, picking up his tools. But I need to get back to the car tomorrow. I don't have crutches, but perhaps you can carry you back, Ryan suggested. I accidentally laughed aloud. I can carry you just fine, he seethed, his eyes narrowing at me. We decided to lounge for another few minutes, allowing the paint to polish off another round of coffee. Allowing time to polish off another round of coffee. The room was quiet. None of us really knew what to say to each other as Ryan brought out a new pot. It had been such an odd day already, and the idea of talking about any of it was way too much, or was too much for me. I drummed by good foot, wishing we could go home. Ryan sat down beside me, looping his arm around the back of the couch. So what brought you guys all the way out here? You and I looked at each other, unsure whether or not to tell him that we followed a series of odd sightings through the forest. The idea of saying such a ridiculous thing made me even want to laugh at myself and my own stupidity. We got lost, that's why I broke my leg. I had no idea where I was. You know these woods, I said, looking at my shoes. You never know what's going to creep up on you out here. Ryan nodded. That's very true. Not long ago, I had to treat a woman who got mauled by a bobcat, he said, letting out a bellowing laugh. But winter is a good time to come out here, to avoid all the animals, if you're willing to deal with the cold, he said, throwing a smile my way. Hugh looked at Ryan, balling his hands into fists. Hugh stood up, setting his empty cup down. Ellie, we should get going. Ryan stood with him. Alright, well, you guys can come back in the morning to get your leg looked at before you head out, he said, helping me up, just to be safe. Thanks, man, Hugh said, offering his hand to support me while I stood. He practically jogged out of the house, as if he couldn't wait to leave. A little suggestion there, brewing. Hugh was mute while he carried me down the dim street, the quiet driving me mad. The silent treatment is for children, a coward's way out of an argument, but he didn't care. I hated being left to wonder what was wrong. But I was unwilling to ask, unsure if I had the emotional strength to deal with whatever issue he had with me now. We proceeded through the dim neighborhood before we ended up in an intersection that could be called downtown. On one corner sat a mum and pop shop, about a sheet metal sign dangling off the edge of its porch that read John's. Across the street from John's stood an old cabin that I assumed was a grocery store, noting the rusty hand-painted advertisement for bulk beans and potatoes. To our right was another dilapidated cabin that had an engraved tree trunk out front that simply read police. So the engraved tree trunk read police, okay. And then there was the inn. At 3 stories tall, it was the largest building in town. Its frail wooden skeletal structure looked like it might fall over if someone leaned on it the wrong way. The windows were all cracked or broken, and the front door seemed to be without a knob. What the hell is this place? I said, staring around with wide eyes. He trudged inside without comment. You know what I want to happen? I want them to walk in and it's ghosted and full of cobwebs, and then out from the back, sauntering through into the front, is Ryan. And he's like, hey, I own the inn. You're not going anywhere. That's what's gonna happen. That's what I want to happen. We walked in and saw a young girl. Oh, perhaps 18 years old. Well, I can imagine. It could be Ryan, still. We walked in and saw a young girl, perhaps 18 years old, manning the front desk. Her blonde head popped up from a book she was reading, obviously surprised to see us. She watched us survey the room as we approached the front desk, her eyes lowering with a bit of shame at the state of things. The lobby was dusty but decorated with ornate, unpolished silvers and fake gold. The carpet a scratchy threadbare red that matched the torn drapes. Are there any rooms available? Hugh asked. Rude. Hello, we're from out of town. Would you happen to have any... blah blah blah. So rude, Hugh. Are there any rooms available? Hugh asked. She nodded, sucking in her lips, and handed us the key without a word. Her eyes followed us as we walked away. Is this how hotels work in America? I don't know. Usually there's a bit of formality, like putting down your details, how long you want to stay for. When we reached the room, Hugh dumped me on the cheap linen bedspread. I like how unceremonious that is. It was an old but comfortable place. The bed was creaky but soft, and the floorboards moaned as you walked across them, but the oil lamps and floral wallpaper lent the room an odd sense of hominess. His voice was sunken with stress and irritation. I'm gonna take a shower. I rolled my eyes. I could feel that familiar punch in my gut. Knowing an argument was about to happen. What is your issue? I snapped. I just wanted to get it out of the way. No point in beating around the bush. He spun on his heel to glare at me. I saw how you guys looked at each other. I let out a dark and sarcastic laugh. You can't be for real. Oh, I'm dead serious, he said, leaning into his anger. He threw his tail down on the bed, placed his hands on his hips, raising his eyebrows at me expectantly. It was his go-to. Go-to a single word? I dare you to prove me wrong pose, which he struck quite often these days. I can't go back to my prison island when I'm already here. Yeah. I'm never leaving. Prison island will be the death of me. Exactly. Our border officials. They're not human. They're just snakes and spiders. They stamp your passport on the way out. They make sure that we're going to come back. What a horrible future that would be. That Simpsons episode when they let me find it, hang on. You guys remember that website where you can type in any Simpsons quote and it will pull up the screenshots associated with that episode? It's got a very unusual name. Frinkiac, that's right. Sorry, I'm getting distracted, but... Oh, I thought it was different. Okay, well... When the Simpsons arrive in Australia, they see this, which is, a sign on in customs as they're coming through. We don't do AEs a lot. I don't think any country really does that anymore. Flora and fauna. It's not from the AE though. Then Bart puts his frog into the fountain. Yeah. Frinkiac, thank you. Yes, it's an amazing website. I couldn't help but laugh again. What else is there to do when you're arguing with someone who sees things that aren't there? You have zero fucking idea what you're talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Getting all flushed when he shot you that idiot smile. I let my face sink into my hands and squeezed my eyes shut. I had become tired of trying to argue against things that didn't happen. If he thought it happened, there was no way he was going to let it go. He wasn't always this difficult to handle. But ever since the crash, he'd been finding any way to take his emotions out on me. I understood it, but I didn't appreciate it. Don't do that, I said, trying to sound composed. Do what? Tell it like it is? He's just telling it like it is. He spit, waving his hands at me. I saw the way you were looking at that guy. Comma, Ellie, don't fucking lie to me. Looking at him, I asked, wiping my eyes. You always fucking do this. What? Can you out on your I'll call you out on your shit. Oh, please. You laughed this time, edging closer to the bed, leaning in towards me and giving his best impression of a menacing expression, which sat oddly on his kind features. Ellie, I've seen you looking at plenty of guys. I'm surprised we're even still married. I choked on a painful lump rising in my throat, threatening to make me cry. One that threatened to make me cry. I didn't want to be there anymore. I stood ignoring the pain in my shin and limped towards the door. Where the fuck are you going? Out. Chapter 2. Okay, good. So we're going to pull that there. Here. We'll deal with these. Have a guess. How many words? 724. Wow, I was off. 448. 443. Good suggestion. So we've got a sense of Hugh's emotional state, which is like that of a toddler. But it's interesting. I think it's done quite interestingly in terms of how they're obviously digging up wounds from the past, which is the crash. Let's think about how we can work with this and make it shine. It would suffice to say that I let slip a few unsavory words while Ryan repositioned the bone and put a brace on it. Without painkiller, I might add, but I was thankful to be done with it. So this is a really good indication of what kind of register the narrator is choosing to take with you as a reader. Rather than being an in-the-moment kind of story where the narrator is very careful to make sure that they're not taking their future impression and colouring the past with it. Rather than doing that, sorry, no, she is doing that. Nazguula is doing that. The opposite would be to not write a sentence like this and just to have the narrator treat it like a present tense story but written in a past tense. How you choose to write in the past tense will really determine how you can get away with these types of sentences. And when you choose the kind of register you want, it will have consequences with how the reader takes an impression of the story. To me, this reads as though Ellie in the future is taking a lot of liberty in telling you what details from the story you should know as a reader. Hmm. I got a weird backwards broken vibe. Hmm. By backwards broken vibe, do you mean let the dogs out? Yes, that is my dog. But she can't get in. I got a weird backwards broken vibe. I got the same vibe too. If by backwards broken vibe, you mean like a backwater town. Excuse me. A backwater town that is very derelict and kind of, yeah, run down, destitute. That's your cutie dog. She's a bit heavy. I can't pick her up. I can. I just don't want to pop my back. Why is she scratching at my door too? That looks a bit like her actually. Dangerous strain to dogs. She's a beagle. She is a lemon beagle. She's a sweetie. Yeah. See, this is my Australian upbringing kicking in. These are the scratchy snakes. They scratch at your door, pretending to be a dog, and then the unsuspecting human opens the door. Blah! It's a snake, and they eat you. So we're tuned for this. Why I'm ignoring it. Everyone loves a dog. It's a smart burglar. That's a pretty good burgling technique, isn't it? Give me a sec. I'm gonna check why my dog is scratching at the door. Just give me a moment. Alright, thanks for waiting. Sorry about that. What happened then? I went out to let my dog in, and then the phone rang. And then I had a conversation with someone that was more or less, I can't talk right now, and then I still talk with them. Um, and then I made tea, but I couldn't find my minion cup, so we've got fake marble. Thank you for sitting there while I did all of that. I made the tea while I was chatting with the person, so multitasking. Yeah, Outrider SG, I'm sorry to hear about your dog. That's it's a really hard thing to go through. I've been through that myself, so yeah, it's really sad. Um, you spent a lot of really good years with dogs, and it feels like so unfair when they leave. Yeah. What kind of dog did you have? Hmm. That was why we put our other dog down too. He kept getting worse as well. There's a level of pain that your dog starts to experience as well that it becomes difficult to justify helping them out, which is unpleasant. But it's I guess part of the responsibility of owning a dog too is knowing that you want what's best for them. Yeah. Ah, a white chihuahua. Yeah, dogs make pretty great people, don't they? I think this is a very popular opinion that I agree to 100%. Okay. So if you want to continue writing a story like this, which I think is fine, um, we then need to strike the balance between what's considered good practice from a narrator that's talking about a past event. Let's keep our finger on the pulse of that as we go through. He advised staying off it for at least a month. I never like the phrase off of it. It kind of grinds sentences to a stop. So for my own writing, I just chop it out completely. He advised keeping any weight from the um, staying off the leg for at least a month, for a month at least. That's fine. Off of it is a very easy thing to replace. I don't know if I can see that happening. I said trailing off with a laugh is fine. Ryan shot me a knowing look. Well, if you want it to heal, it needs to be rested. He said, picking up his tools. Again, we've got lots of like the double back end. Ryan shot me a knowing look as he started to pack up his tools. There you go. But I need to get back to the car tomorrow. I don't have crutches, but perhaps you can carry you back, Ryan suggested. I accidentally laughed out loud. Why? He's carried you through the bush. The bush. He's carried you through the forest up until this point successfully. I didn't get why this makes her laugh out loud. Why the lol? Um, Ryan. No, no, not Ryan. Hugh. I was almost gonna say Hugo. Um, you want a cushion? You, this is my dog, by the way. Hey, Bianca. Hi. Hello. Giving me a look. I'll give you a close up a bit later when she's settled on the cushion. Bianca is her name, by the way, the name of my dog. And now you know all of my passwords. Don't make your password the name of your dog, okay? It's yeah. There we go. The chat lights up. Sorry, I missed some. Ooh. I think painkiller can also be. Uh, Painkillers or anesthetic, either way, kind of works, doesn't it? It's like a layman's term. Um, Advice staying off, I would say putting pressure on it or something. Advice staying off the leg. Advice putting pressure on the leg. Ryan would probably say I advise keeping pressure off of it, but this is from the perspective of Ellie, so Ellie can like paraphrase and muddle up the exact terminology. I don't think it matters either way, 50-50. Um, I think it's reasonable to chop the leg off. Yep. Oh yes, good point, Radar SG. Yes. I contradicted my own advice there. Um, Thank you, thank you. Much better. Nice. You gotta edit the Lyrebird edits. I'm not 100% right all the time. You guys are my secondary editors. Dog edits. Change dog's name. Easy peasy. What's a bad dog name? Sprinkles. Give me your bad dog names. Give them to me. Give me all of your bad dog names. Curmudgeon. I did. Was this about without painkiller? You mean anesthetic? Advise staying put. Yeah, I think if Ryan was telling her directly, I'd advise changing it maybe. But because this is Ellie's um recycled understanding of the situation, I think she would say it in a more layman way. Yeah, that's 50-50. I'll let Nazguula decide if she wants to change it. Me as an editor, I don't really have much of a strong thing. Xander's little helper, Puffo. That's a good one. Frank Yeager. That's great. That's a really good name. Smoopy is an unusual one. It's kind of like we don't want to get sued by Disney. No wait, no. Who owns Charlie Brown? I'm going to assume it's Disney. Um, or Warner Brothers, either one. You don't want to get sued by them for naming your dog. So Smoopy is kind of like, oh, it's just different enough. Cujo is pretty good. Peanuts, good cartoon, and also the good name for a dog. Yeah, Chihuahuas like are a special class of dog. They need their own special Chihuahua names. Like, you can't call a Chihuahua Bruce or Maximus. Actually, you could call a Chihuahua Maximus. That's an awesome name for a Chihuahua. So let's go on. I accidentally laughed out loud. He successfully carried her through the forest. So I'm not 100% sure why she'd laugh at this suggestion. Yeah, it didn't make sense to me. I can carry just fine. He seethed, his eyes narrowing at me. That's very bitter. We decided to lounge for another few minutes, allowing time to polish off and have a round of coffee. The room was quiet, none of us really knowing what to say to each other as Ryan brought out a new pot. The room was quiet can you reconfigure this? Silence clung to the wallpaper like dead flies. Something like that, I don't know. Something rightly. Because it's fine for you to declare silence being there, but the room was quiet doesn't really fit with the kind of ornate, polished writing that we're trying to go for with this sort of thing here. If you set the tone as being quite opulent in writing and then undermine it later on, yeah, just sort of keep it a little bit consistent. Darth Maul, that's a good name. Maximus Dickus. I only just recently watched The Life of Brian, so I get that reference. I now understand that reference. I am a cultured human being. Um, no, sorry, it was Biggest Dickus, not Maximus Dickus, but the same thing sort of applies. It had been such an odd day already, and the idea of it had been such an odd day already, and the idea of talking about any of it was too much for me. I drummed my good foot, wishing we could go home. I'm not sure what this means. I think like I tapped my good foot. Drummed implies that like you've got something going on here with your hands or fingers, and I don't really know. The image didn't work, so I tapped my good foot like. Um. You don't really need that to a senseless tune, but yeah, wishing we can go home. Ryan sat down beside me, looping his arm on the back of the couch. So what brought you guys all the way out here? This is an awfully forward thing for Ryan to do, so seems quite forward for Ryan to pull this one out of nowhere. So maybe get Ellie to think about it, or get her to brush it aside. Either way, it's important for later on, as it turns out, because Ellie, you are married to a man-child. Sleeping his arm to the back of the couch. Hugh and I looked at each other, unsure whether or not to tell him that we followed a series of odd sightings through the bush. The idea of saying such a ridiculous thing made me want to laugh at myself and my own stupidity. We got lost, so yeah. We got lost. That's how I broke my leg. I had no idea where I was, and you know these woods, I said, looking at my shoes. You never know what's going to creep up on you out there, out here. This sounds like she has some sort of familiarity with these woods. I think I know what you mean, Nazguula, what you're going for. I had no idea where I was, and I guess you know these woods better than I do. I had no idea where I was, and I guess you know better than I do. But there. I said looking at my shoes needs to go away. You never know what's going to creep up on you out here. That's a very familiar sentence. I feel like no, I don't think we can salvage this. This feels as though Ellie's had 6 or 7 years worth of experience with this, and she's like, you never know what you're gonna come across out here, right? Yeah, says Ryan, knowing exactly what Ellie means. Like, that's the kind of sentence that flows into it, but right now it's just like, there's strangers here, but I don't think she's ever been here before. Ryan nodded. That's very true. Not too long ago, I had to treat a woman who got mauled by a bobcat. Full stop, he said, letting out a bellowing laugh. Um, full stop. He stopped to let out a bellowing laugh is okay. Ha 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 ha. Hey, the Corgi Commander. We were talking about dogs before. Give us a good dog name. I came up with Sprinkles. We had some good ones here. Cujo was nice. Puffo is good for a fat dog. Smoopy I especially like because it doesn't infringe on anyone's intellectual property. Peanut's also a good name for a dog. Darth Maul, Maximus Dickus works especially good for a really small dog. Jaeger is a really good. Oh, sorry, you said further up here. Maximus Dickus maybe. Oh, here we go. Yeah, Jaeger's the best corgi name in my opinion. Cool. Sorry, I didn't see you there. Um, Blue's quite good. Come out here. I think if we cut out to come out here, what's the sentence trying to achieve? But winter is a good time to come out here to avoid all the animals if you're willing to deal with the cold. What's he trying to say? He's trying to say if winter is a good time to come out here to come here, but winter is a good time to avoid all the animals if you're willing to deal with the cold. Seems a bit like a weird sort of statement that comes out of nowhere. I think the come out here is a bit necessary in this case. But winter is a good time to come here, to visit here, to walk here, to be here, to avoid all the animals if you're willing to deal with the cold, he said, throwing a smile my way. Again, the longer you drag out a sentence, the less I'm inclined to enjoy having a dialogue. The dialogue tag is simple, so it doesn't matter. Throwing a smile my way is okay. It's fine. You looked at Ryan. Ellie would need to turn and specifically look at Hugh. Ellie needs to turn and see Hugh looking at Ryan, balling his hands into fists, because you don't want Ellie to be an objective, omniscient narrator. She has her own grounded focal point within the story, and if we don't have a sentence that allows the reader to understand why Ellie is seeing this, this will come across as a narrator's device. But Ellie is first and foremost a character in this story and a narrator uh, underneath that in a sense, so it needs to make sense how she knows this. Hugh stood up, setting his empty cup down. We've got Hugh does this, Hugh does that, and the transition here doesn't. It's not as smooth as it could be. Hugh looked at Ryan, balling his fists into hands. Extend the implication out. Hugh then stands up, setting his empty cup down. Ellie, we should get going. Ryan stood with him. Alright, well, you guys. Alright. Alright's not a word. Alright is a word. Oh no, you can do it all right. Where did this change? I grew up looking at all right and having it always corrected to all right. Anyway, all right is a word. As a Ellie as a dog's name? It's not a bad dog name. Blondie's a good name. I like Blondie. Ah, okay. That's true. Not catching when we got more by a bulkhead. When is a good time to? I'll have to think about this. I think we do already know he's talking about it, but because he hasn't said it explicitly, I think it can be okay to re-ground this sentence. I'm okay to leave it in, but another editor may pick up on what Sayaka was saying and say, cut this out, make it leaner, highlight this part of a sentence a bit more. Welcome to the stream, Zadumka. Zadumka. Hi, welcome. So what we're doing right now is we're editing The Demon of Eden, which is by Nazguula, who isn't here with us in this stream today. She was with us last stream when we were going through the first part of her story. What we do on Lyrebird Edits is people send their stories to me, and I go through them line by line, section by section, and I guess I just edit. I make suggestions based on what I see, I talk about how the narrative is working, and then I get distracted and talk about other things too. Hitler had a dog? Huh. Imagine being Hitler's dog, my god. You feel like you'd failed at life if you were Hitler's dog. Hmm. Yeah, exactly. I think I remember hearing that Adolf used to be a fairly common name, especially in Hungary around like pre-Second World War era. I was thinking to myself, it's incredible how poisonous one person can be in terms of like in addition to causing huge amounts of human suffering, you leave such an impression on the collective human psyche that that name is just erased from generations. Imagine that. Yeah, so Hitler's ruined a lot of things. Yeah. Huh, there you go. Weird things you learn about people. Hmm. I still don't love Hugh stood up, setting his empty cup down. Ellie, we should get going. Um, but I want to see how this sentence ends before I suggest a replacement for this one here. Alright, well, you guys can come back in the morning to get your leg looked at. To get that leg looked at before you head out. The reason why I don't like your is because there's a plural here, you guys, which implies a plural. So your leg implies that the leg is shared between the two of them. Um, again, backhanded dialogue tag, helping me up just to be safe. Thanks, man, Hugh said, offering his hand to support me while I stood. He practically jogged out of our house as if he couldn't wait to leave. And this is not a great way to end that little paragraph because what's happening with Ellie? Is Hugh supporting? If so, this image at the end sort of contradicts. I'm gonna get rid of the sort of, but it contradicts. This image at the end contradicts Ellie's physical discomfort. Keep the impression, but have a think about how to transition between this scene and the next. I certainly don't mind the implication that Hugh can't couldn't wait to leave, but I think it needs to be dealt with in a different image, jogged out of the house, because Ellie's got to go with him. Hmm. Is that so? It reads like fake news. My fake news thing up here is telling me that that sounds like it doesn't make sense. But I mean, I'm prepared to believe CNN. Imagine having that in your family tree, like a really awful, awful person. You're descended from that person. Hmm. He was mute while he carried me down the dim street. So, because we've got a scene break here, we need to know that he practically jogged and carried me down the street. They contradict each other in a perpendicular sense. So he's doing one thing here and doing another thing here. I suggest cutting that sentence there. The quiet driving me mad. I want this to be demonstrated somehow. This is again like a declarative statement, but so you can demonstrate this another way, like I don't really know what I'm going for here. I want to ground this scene down here. Maybe this is fine. It doesn't really demonstrate it, but Ellie, I guess, has the right to talk about it because she's the narrator. The silent treatment is for children, a coward's way out of an argument, but he didn't care. I hated being left to wonder what was wrong, but I was unwilling to ask. Unsure if I had the emotional strength to deal with whatever issue he had with me right now. This is quite important because this sets the tone for the whole section that comes. We proceeded through the dim neighborhood. That's pretty cool actually. Go. No, I'm not touching this one. Too many distractions. But that's really cool, Sayaka. It's something I don't know a lot about myself. Apart from Volgograd was in there somewhere. I think that was one of the fronts between Germany and Russia. Yeah, interesting. World War Two is a very very interesting war. A very sad one too. I mean, it's very rare that you don't have a war that isn't sad, but yeah, World War Two is a very elaborate mess. Maybe not as messy as World War One, but yeah. No, I'm not taking the bait, Outrider. I'm not taking the bait. We proceeded through the dim neighborhood before we ended up at an intersection that could be called downtown. One corner set a mum and pop shop. I think you need to capitalize M and P there. Yes. A battered sheet metal sign dangling off the edge of its porch that read John's. Across the street from John's stood an old cabin that I assumed was a grocery store, noting the rusty hand-painted advertisement for bulk beans and potatoes. The right was another dilapidated cabin which had an engraved tree trunk out front that was simply read the Popo. So, I'd like a little sentence here. And then there was the in. Great way to start a paragraph. Really nice because it flows through with what's just come before it and it ties in the idea really, really neatly. This is a great example of when people tell you not to start sentences with conjunctions. You can tell them to politely go climb a tree. Because it's a really nice linker between these different ideas that reads as though it's almost completely fluid. Um, if you can justify a break in convention like this, then go for it. Absolutely go for it, and don't compromise. I'm having trouble too with really picking what this place is. My first impression of where we are is a couple of cabins in the middle of nowhere, like a very small, I wouldn't even call it a townlet. Let's scroll back up a little bit because Nazgula's got a description here. They see the sign, and I remember writing out a suggestion here about Ellie and Hugh walking through the forest a little bit before coming to some sort of clearing. Um, I think that's gone. I don't know if it's been incorporated further up. I have a feeling it hasn't. That's okay. As we approached the shack, we could see over the bluff, revealing a little clearing down the hill and a thin pathway that led down. My heart started a beat to see that strange sight, a town, nestled on the crack of a valley, rolling down just out of view into a fresh tree line, like a little slice of somewhere unknown. This has to prepare you for what comes later, and I think if we were to reread the reworked story, we might have a better impression of what this place actually looks like. What I initially assumed of as like a 1 to 3 or 4 cabin village-ette, looks more like it's a proper town now. Which is okay, I think, if we can justify this. We talked in the last stream about the barrier between the reality and the unreality of this place. Oh, really? That's interesting. Actually, you said something before about putting in an abiotic factor that underpins how the characters act with each other. So like light, temperature, um, wind, the sorts of things that contribute towards influencing biology. So it's interesting that you said like a swampland with a hot and humid atmosphere and how that would influence the characters and how they'd be a bit bitey with each other. It's a really good suggestion. I like that. Houses, cabins, shacks is what I was thinking originally as well, Saika. Yeah, I agree. I think that's totally right. That's my thoughts exactly. I couldn't have said it better. At 3 stories tall, it was the largest building in town. Its frail wooden skeletal structure looked like it might fall over if somebody leaned on it the wrong way. We'll stop. The windows were all cracked or broken, and the front door seemed to be without a knob. This is quite derelict. Are we sure we don't want to dial it down a little bit? Especially because as like all the windows were cracked? All of them? Um Theory, this is a ghost town and the inhabitants are sort of like time trapped places that they inhabit on the inside are all functioning, but on the outside it's all derelict because it's actually vacant. If you want to try and pull this off, you need to stretch the descriptions in both ways. So what I mean by that, Nazguula, in the future, hi, when you're watching me in the past. Right now, it reads to me just like, here's a description of the place, they walk inside, there's someone there, and then they go upstairs. If you want to try and pull off the idea that you may be going for, if you're not going for this, then ignore it. But I think it's important to chat about just for everyone else. If that's the kind of impression that you want to give, what we need is to have it longer and more fleshed out. Specifically, this idea that on the outside everything is derelict and that they don't expect anything to be on the inside. What is Ellie expecting to be on the inside? Because when you have that, you go in, huge charge inside without comment. We walked in and saw a young pup's 18-minute man in the front desk. Now, here's the second side of it. If you elaborate on the front side, that on the outside it's broken, it's derelict, Ellie expects nothing to be inside. They walk in, oh, it's okay. We walked in and the inside couldn't have been more different from the exterior, is the impression that you want to give. That confounds the expectation that Ellie has, and then when you describe this, you put the seed of an idea into the reader's mind, and that idea is that there's this disparity between the perception of this place from the exterior and the reality of the place on the exterior. This happens twice now. This happens not only here at the inn, but also for Ryan's place as well. If you want to go for the idea that the exterior is derelict and true, while the interiors of these places are time-locked, ghostly reflections of the past, you need to do two things. One, set up, enhance the descriptions of states A and B so that they contrast more. Two, establish the characters' expectations and understandings. Make the reader understand that Ellie understands that there is a disparity between the exterior and interiors. In addition, repeat the same thing for Ryan's house. Bad exterior, good interior, why? That's the answer to the question. It's a question to the question. What did I say? It's the answer to the question? No, not at all. Ignore what I said just then. It is the defining question that your reader will be asking themselves. It's the mystery to this story. Why, in the middle of nowhere, is there this town? Why, when they walk in and they see all the derelict buildings and everything, there are people inside these buildings who are just totally normal. And when they walk into this crappy, old, broken place, on the inside, it's just like, oh, okay, I thought this would be abandoned. No, it's fine, come on in. Why? Why? And that's good, that's a really good question that you don't have to answer right now, but you need to make your readers understand that they should be asking that question. Right now, I don't think that it's being done in the strongest manner. I think it's there, but it's very... I'm not going to use the word subtle, I'm going to use the word hidden, because they're different. Something that's subtle is an idea that is lodged in your head smoothly, seamlessly, without being like beaten into you. Hidden is not as good. Hidden means that I have to dig through the rough to get to the impression that you're trying to convey to me as a reader. As an editor, I think it's my job to come in and say, okay, I get what you're doing. Here's how you polish that and make it effective, and that's what I think we're trying to go for here. Does that make sense? And importantly, I want to know your impressions, guys, in the chat. Did you get the same impression of what I was thinking then? Do you have this idea in your head, like me, that there was this disparity between the exterior and the interior? Or am I just making stuff up? Like I don't know. We walked in and saw a young girl, perhaps 18 years old, manning the front desk. Her blonde head popped up from the book she was reading, obviously surprised to see us. I'll get rid of this. Okay, so flip it around a bit too. Um, Introduce the surroundings first. Did I spell surroundings properly? No, sing. Surroundings first, then take us to the girl. Take us to the girl. Introduce the surroundings first and take us to the girl. Then maybe drop something like this. So for example, if you introduce characters first, they exist in a vacuum. So it's like, imagine you are listening to me right now as I tell a story. I entered the room and Janice was on the other side. She had her head in some sort of journal and she put the journal aside as she saw me coming into the room. I walked over to her. Along all the walls sat bubbling tanks filled with all sorts of deep-sea marine life, their eerie bioluminescence casting a glow across the lab walls. Now, in the same way that like the Scarface parrot problem exists, you don't want to have your characters exist in a grey vacuum and then paint in the scene around them. You want to paint the scene first and plonk your characters down there. It'd be like I wonder if Clem is Clem watching right now? I'm gonna use a Sims reference. Anyway, it'd be like playing The Sims and starting with I mean, you start The Sims by creating your characters and then plonking them into a house, right? But imagine you create your character, you plonk them onto an empty lot, and then you press play, and it's like, okay, well, there's a character there, and there's nothing for them to interact with. Then imagine you don't pause the house construction, and you just you build the house in real time around them. Don't do that in writing. Pause, build the house, and then plonk your character in, because we've created the character in our heads long ago. It's one of the first things you do when you read a story. You find out who the main character is and you construct an image in your head. After perhaps a grounding scene, so the character is static and they move between scenes. You're playing The Sims, make the scene, and then push the character into that new scene. Hmm. Preempts the girl and wipe away her debt. Yeah, it's good. Let me go back a little and just read comments I may have missed. Yeah, sorry if I'm not being clear enough. That is the perfect time to use a free real estate meme. The house is free! We're giving you a free house. I love that. I love that whole video. Um, that writer says, I'm getting the idea that these people are trapped in this town and they don't maintain the facade. Interiors of where they dwell. Interesting, yeah. Can do it to good effect if you introduce the character first in the scene. There are examples where that could be really good. I think maybe for here though, we should flip it around. Introduce the surroundings, then take us to the goal. Wipe away the debt. So for instance, the lobby was dusty but decorated with ornate polished silvers and fake gold, threadbare carpet. So this comes first. So in addition to yeah, I'd like her to interact with them more than just like she's reading a book, she looks up and she's like, hmm. I want her to be surprised. Are there any rooms available? Hug asked. She nodded, sucking in her lips, and handed us a key without a word. Rice followed us as we walked away. If you want to keep the wordless thing going, you can get rid of this. It's just a bit sort of it reads a bit weird. Maybe she's a ghost. When we reached the room, comma, Hug dumped me on the cheap linen bedspread. I like how brutally it's just he dumped me there on the bedspread. Fine, it works. It conveys the emotion. Just fine. It it was an old but comfortable place. The bed was creaky but soft, and the floorboards moaned as you. I would like to see this detail. Used as the scene opener. E.g., I want to see a paragraph like this. I agree completely. Yep. Um. Stephen King reference. So for instance, I take this detail and use it in combination with motion. Take the detail here and use it in combination with motion so that the scene feels a bit one thing about writing like this is that you lose a bit of immediacy with your writing. If the narrator is a bit too much armchair, cork pipe, slippers, let me tell you a story that happened last week to me. If it's a bit too much like that, what you lose as a reader is that sense that the story is actually taking place. Even when you're talking about a story way, way, way in the past, it's really nice to have a sense of vividness to the story that means that you feel like it's unfolding as you're experiencing it. Even if this exists. What's a good, like, Nabokov's Lolita, for instance, is written by it, it's written from the perspective of someone who's talking about events that have happened in the past with quite a big amount of distance, and yet my recollection of how that story impacts the reader is that the events feel quite real and in the moment. So, in spite of this being the case, this narrative device here, I still, as a reader, want motion to my story as well. Um, so even though Ellie is telling this story from a future perspective, it's still good to make the reader feel as though the events in the linear narrative are unfolding for them in real time. You can have this balance. CF the suggested paragraph here. Oh, Beauty and the Beast? Oh yeah, with yeah, I get what you mean with the candelabra. Oh, you've reworked it. Nice. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I think you were saying yeah, it's been reworked. Um, After this story, we've got next story. Ernest Herringbone. That's right. Yes. Um, we've got Ernest Herringbone's story after this one. Well, then we can go back to Sean's story actually. So remind me in a couple of weeks. That will be a couple of weeks' time. Yeah, I'd like to go back over stories that we've worked with previously and see how it's progressed. After Naz's next bit, so I'll do Naz once more this Thursday. Then we've got Ernst Herringbone, who I'll do for 2 or 3 streams, depending on how long the excerpt is. And then we can do you again. Room 315. I don't know. I don't remember anything about The Hobbit. I'm about to tell you a deep, dark, and shameful secret. Back in year 7, 12-year-old me was tasked to read The Hobbit as part of a year 7 English fantasy module. I didn't like reading back when I was an early teenager. I found it difficult. I found it obtuse, and The Hobbit is not the kind of book that gelled with me because I was stubborn and I refused to read it. In addition to not reading The Hobbit, I needed to get a vague sense of what it was about for a test that was coming up. So I went to the library and I borrowed the audiobook of The Hobbit. It was the abridged audiobook version of The Hobbit, so it wasn't someone reading The Hobbit out loud. It was a play where people had assumed the characters and had basically just cut it down into like a radio play format. And I did not finish listening to that. I didn't like the story of The Hobbit. And I was very stubborn because high fantasy didn't tickle my fancy. And I think I did okay in the test. But yeah, my secret shame about The Hobbit is that I've never read it and I've never listened to it. And I saw the first movie and didn't watch the others. So I don't know how the Hobbit ends. Don't know how it ends. Don't know. I think it is, isn't it? Is Lord of the Rings like that too? Ah, the deep dark secrets coming out. Hmm. Nice. I like the courage of just making it up as you go along. That's interesting though. Like it's how you got started with creating stories by making it up on the spot. That, in a very roundabout way, is actually quite a good thing that happened. Isn't that weird though? I started writing because I was frustrated that I wasn't reading anything interesting, and I liked world creation and thinking about how characters would do interesting things. And um, I had such a weird palette of different things to choose from, but I always wrote very weird stories. That would, I mean, my first novels were just awful, but you know, it's what you do when you're a teenager. You write awful novels, and they were fun. They're fun, awful novels. I still remember them. Um, yeah, in a weird roundabout way, resenting English made me a better English person. It wasn't. No, this was back in 2003. 2003. Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was on your wavelength there. All good. Hey. Someone else doesn't like The Hobbit. Good. We can form a little Hobbit club. Let's deal with this last section here, and then I'll probably call it quits for this stream. Hughes' voice was sunken with stress and irritation. I'm gonna take a shower. I rolled my eyes. I could feel that familiar punch in my gut, knowing an argument was about to happen. What is your issue? I snapped. I just wanted to get it out of the way. No point in beating around the bush. That's okay. Um, Usually what would happen is we'd have this build up and end in what is your issue? But I kind of don't mind that. It's straight to the point, and then a follow up statement declaring as such. I think that's okay. He spelled his healing to declare at me. I saw you guys look at each other. I let out a dark and sarcastic laugh. You can't be for real. That's okay. It's a bit ornate, but Ellie is telling this story, so. Oh, I'm dead serious, he said, leaning into his anger. He threw his towel down on the ground, on the bed, and placed his hands on his hips, raising his eyebrows at me expectantly. I don't like the word expectantly there. Usually try not to end sentences with LYs. It was his go-to "I dare you to prove me wrong" pose, which he struck quite often these days. I'd change this into a pose that I was, unfortunately, very much used to seeing these days. I couldn't help but laugh again. What else is there to do when you're arguing with someone who sees things that aren't there? I have zero fucking idea what you're talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Getting all flushed when he shot you that idiot smile. How dare you have a different opinion, Sayaka, about a book? How... Oh, I'm so I'm flustered. How could you do this? I need a shower would also be a good suggestion there. Yep, I like it because it's shorter. I need a shower. I need a shower. It's more bitter, I think. Yeah. I like leaning into his anger personally because it implies that it's kind of like this emotional pull that he's pressing into. I thought that was quite clever. Yeah, it it helps really solidify how much of a dick Hugh is being. I mean, look fair, he's probably a bit shitty from having to carry his wife on his back all day. Um, and their relationship is obviously very strained. I let my face sink into my hands and squeeze my eyes shut. I had become tired of trying to argue against things that didn't happen. If he thought it happened, there was no way he was going to let it go. He wasn't always as difficult to handle, but ever since the crash, he'd been finding a way to take his emotions out on me. I understood it, but I didn't appreciate it. Um, don't do that, I said, trying to sound composed. I'd front end this, trying to sound composed. I murmured quietly. Now just I murmured. Don't do that. Do what? Tell it like it is? I'd make a new sentence. Hugh. I saw the way you were looking at the guy. That gentleman. Ellie, don't fucking lie to me. Looking at him, I asked, wiping my eyes. You always fucking do this. What called you out on your shit? Oh, please. Hugh laughed at me, edging closer to the bed, leaning in towards me, leaning towards me, and giving his best impression of a menacing expression, which sat oddly on his kind features. Ellie, I've seen you looking at plenty of guys. I'm surprised we're still married. Before this. I choked on a painful lump rising in my throat, one that threatened to make me cry. I didn't want to be there anymore. There. I stood ignoring the pain in my shin. This is the first mention of shin. I limped towards the door. Where the fuck are you going? Out. You can consider having a little tail to this, and I slammed the door behind me, and without looking back, I closed Hugh in on his own stewed. I left him to stew. Something like that, whatever, but it's not strictly necessary. General comments about this chapter. Be careful with the broken leg. I think that's the thing for me as an editor. I want to convey about this chapter here. Even though Ellie is talking about her events in the past, I'm not entirely on board with the pain that she's sensing from having broken her leg. I thought she'd strained it. I thought she'd sprained her ankle. And then when we get into town, it turns out it's a broken leg. That would be super painful. Like, well beyond reasonably swallowing pain. It would be total, almost. You'd have this sense that everything that you wanted to do would be underpinned by the pain that you're feeling and the level of discomfort that you're feeling. So the conversations that she has with Ryan, with Hugh, with anyone else, I think it's just those two, need to be drenched with this sense of, I don't care what's happening, I just want to not feel pain. That needs to be, unfortunately, the underlying issue. If you don't want it to be that intense, and it really needs to be if you want it to be believable, don't make it a broken leg, make it a sprained ankle. Painful, but not tragic, and not enough to dull the sarcasm and normal human emotion that's peppered throughout this whole chapter from the sprain up until now. Just be careful about how the pain should influence the story. Also be careful with the impression that you want to convey with what this town is. It's mysterious, I don't know really why, and I haven't got too much clue as to what the mysterious element is. I picked on something that I thought was there, this idea that the exterior, interior worlds are very different. I leapt on that idea because it was, for me, the thing that I saw that was making sense of my mysterious feeling. Without it, for me it feels a bit like there's a bubbling mystery going on and I don't have any solid clue as to what it is. Which makes me feel a bit stupid as a reader. It makes me feel like I'm doing something wrong. Your job as an author is to be subtle, sure. Everyone likes subtlety, but it's refreshing sometimes to just having an idea about like being blunt doesn't mean that you divulge all the details. It just means that you're very concise and directed in getting your idea for the mystery across to the reader, I really suggest just going through again and having a think about what implication all of these different run-down elements on the outside, decent interiors and nice people on the inside. What's the implication? Why are they like that? You don't have to tell me, but you have to make me want to ask that question, and you have to make me think to ask that question in the first place. Yeah. I quite like the hard out too at the end. I think that's quite a nice way to end. There you go. Yep. So Pumpkin Pie Addict's got some real life experience here. If you've ever broken a bone, just imagine you can't breathe. All you think about is breathing. That's a very... I mean, I've never broken a bone, but I know it's excruciating because I've seen people react to having bones broken. And they're not in a mood for sarcasm or smiling or logical thinking about where they should stay for the night. Yep, I think that's good advice. Yay, safety! We can be safety pals. Yeah. Let's call that a stream. Let's tie up there. Um, thank you for today's stream. I'm sorry it was a bit, a couple of points were a bit choppy when I had to jump out and do a couple of things. So thank you for your patience as always, and I look forward to seeing where chapter 2 takes us. We'll do another stream, and we'll see how it goes. So that will be this Thursday night, 9 p.m. my time. And if you're new and still lurking around, hello, thanks for joining. Pop into my Discord as well, and you can chat during the week. I'm there occasionally. I'm trying to make an effort to be there a bit more. But the link to my Discord is on my Lyrebird Edits Twitch page. Just the regular page. Scroll down to the bottom, you'll see a Discord banner. Cool. Okay, until Thursday, we'll see you guys then. Yeah, hope you have a good week. Thank you for joining me today. Good. Catch you then.